Hey guys, it's your friend Bonnie with All Things Streaming, and we are watching the Spotlight on Influencer show. And today I'm really excited to bring you another special guest and some more great stories. So it's a pleasure to introduce you to Kate Casey. She is the host of Reality Life with Kate Casey podcast, and she features interviews with talent directors, producers, and hosts of the most popular reality shows, docuseries, and documentaries. She has over 90,000 followers on Instagram, and her podcast ranks in the top 1% worldwide and is a top 25 show in the TV and film category. Welcome, Kate, to today's
Thank
show.
you. Great to see you. Thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm so excited. I'm so excited for every guest, but I'm especially excited for you because we're in the same world.
Mhm.
And so I'm really excited. Tell our viewers a little bit about your podcast and what they can find there.
So I've had a show for almost 9 years. I was like one of the early adopters, and I wanted to create a show that was dedicated to what at first was reality shows. I loved reality shows. I'm obsessed with people's stories. I have a photographic memory for details about people. And I thought, wouldn't it be fun to track down people that have been on reality shows like The Real World or whatever it may be, and to see how it changed the trajectory of their life? So it began with one episode a week, and now I have 6 episodes a week, and I cover everything in Unscripted. So reality shows, documentaries, docuseries. I have a book club for nonfiction authors. So everything that is about real people and real stories.
Oh my God, that is amazing. What a brilliant idea. Because I'm the same. I'm always watching documentaries on Netflix. Like I will consume anything if it has to do with someone's story. And I always do wonder, I'm like, what happened to that guy? Or what? So
Yes.
talk about some of the guests that, some of the viewers may know about that you've had on the show.
So for reality shows, I cover and interview everyone from The Real Housewives to The Bachelor, Love is Blind, all of the shows that people are fixated on and love to binge. And I love to ask them questions about not just the behind the scenes stories, but their lives before and after the show aired. And I also love to talk to people from documentaries, not just the subjects of it, but the people that executive produce and direct, because sometimes there's so many little nuggets in those interviews. If you watch a reality show like Love is Blind or a Netflix on Hulu or Apple or HBO, sometimes I think you're left with questions. Like,
Mm.
how did they get into that situation? How did a show cast person approach them? What happened after the show aired? And I get to ask all of those unique questions. I also put out a list every week of what to watch. So on Monday, I'm going to tell you what to watch. Tuesday through Friday, I'm going to interview the people that make or are the subject of all of the things that are listed in that list. And then on Saturdays, I have a special episode where I interview somebody who has an interesting life story, but it may not have been the subject of a documentary or a reality show as of yet. Like they're one of those people that you meet and you're like, why isn't there a show about you? I interview them on Saturdays.
I love that. So funny. Our company started, we're a network, streaming network now, but we started as a TV show. And people, sometimes I'd be coming from like hair and makeup in a cab in New York, and someone would say, like, you need to interview me. And I'm like, well, why? And they would just tell me this interesting story. I'm like, come with me. And we brought
Yes.
in taxi drivers. We brought it because there are so many people out there that have just these crazy, interesting stories, but you don't hear about them and they're not on Netflix. So I love that you do that.
There's sometimes I find that the most interesting interviews are the most unsuspecting ones.
Yeah,
Like someone who didn't feel like they had their life totally cracked open in a reality show or a documentary, and they've just been waiting to talk about something else. And that those are the interviews I find are most interesting and the most feedback I get on.
that's fantastic. So who are some of the biggest stars you've had on there?
Oh my gosh. Well, I do feature a lot of comedians. I've had a lot of actors on, people that have typically had shows that they're featured in, or there's a documentary or documentary series about it. A lot of athletes, a lot of football players. I've had tennis players because I'm really just such a sports fan. So I consume all documentaries. So true crime, pop culture, music, sports, you name it. I probably talked to the person. So it varies. And I think the great thing about my show is that it's a little bit of everything. I kind of
Okay.
feel like I'm the most fun person at a dinner table because I can finesse several different categories. And that's kind of the beauty of documentary series in particular, is that once you start watching them, suddenly you find yourself obsessed with horse racing or golf or
Yes.
tennis because it's the personal stories that suck you in. You don't have to necessarily love a sport or watching a sport to love the people that play that sport. So I think that if you love true stories about people, like I'm just right up your alley. I mean, I was the kind of kid that would take my mom's yearbook as a kid and rifle through it. Like, who was this person and who did they date and what street did they live on and who were their parents and did they have kids? And when you went back for the reunion, were they still married? So it's sort of just an extension of that.
Oh my gosh, I feel like we might be cut from the same cloth. I used to do that all summer long. I would just sit there and read everything that people wrote to my parents.
Yes,
My parents
yes,
were
yes,
high school
yes.
sweethearts, so they had
Mhm.
yearbooks. They were a year apart, but I would just read voraciously, like, oh my God, what did they mean? Like TTYL or what, like
What did
whatever
that
people
mean?
would write.
But
Yeah.
even my friends in college, I'd ask them like, who did
Yeah.
you go to high school with? And where did they go to college? What were their parents like? And then I think that if you like stuff like that, you'll like my show too, because I'm asking those kind of questions. Like I just had a girl who was in the center of this big Vanderpump Rules story when that story kind of went mainstream. And I was asking her about like, tell me about your family. And then when she explained what her family was like and being an only child and her personality, it made all the sense in the world to me why she
Mhm.
would have been in a relationship with someone as bombastic as the guy that she dated. So it's almost like
Interesting.
filling in that those missing pieces.
Yeah, so incredible. The other weekend, I kind of lost a big portion of my weekend because I watched some documentary on the filming of Rust and then
Oh
obviously,
yeah.
et cetera. But then I got down a rabbit hole and then I needed to know everything. And so I watched a couple more different documentaries. And then I got into the Baldwin docu-series and I was like, oh my God, what just happened? But it was so incredible because I felt like that wasn't a story I necessarily followed or like knew much about, just the peripheral
Mhm.
details. But then I thought that I had sort of like a conception of who these people were. And then I actually loved, not that I didn't love them, but I just thought they were different. And then I watched the show and I'm like, I love them. I love their family. Like, I want to go to their house and hang out. And it was just so
Yeah.
interesting because I thought, wow, that's only because the story was told. We make up things that we think or hear or see, and it's just like, eh, okay. So, anyway, just
I
a,
always kind of get unnerved when someone dismisses a reality show. Well, I
yeah,
think of just unscripted as like real people, real stories. But when
yeah,
someone dismisses a reality show, like, oh, it's mind numbing. First of all, it may be escapism for a lot of people who work very demanding jobs, absolutely. But I believe the smartest people watch reality shows because it's just a study of human behavior. We're just
yeah,
all cultural anthropologists. And each reality show um, has its own benefits. Like something like Survivor, you can learn so much about um, deciphering manipulation.
yeah,
Can learn game strategy, peer pressure. You can see how humans behave in a peer pressure situation. Real Housewives reunions are like a master class in conflict resolution. So there are so
yeah.
many great things that come out of watching reality shows. There are people that say to me, I'm on the spectrum and reality shows help me understand communication and behaviors in a way
Mm.
that nothing else does. So there's so much benefit to watching them.
I love that. Yeah, it's always been my favorite genre. So, okay, let's talk about what happened. So you made this podcast. You started with one interview. When it started to grow and get legs, and I mean 90,000 followers and then also 1%, like you've accomplished a lot. What was kind of happening? Walk us through the journey of becoming this influential person in this space and how that all happened.
I'll tell you a crazy story. Well, I, it was really in the beginning days of podcasts where people would ask me, "What is a popcast?" They had no idea, and I'd have to take their phone and I'd have to show people how to use it.
Yeah.
But I think I was clever because my background was in communications and PR and strategy for global law firms. So I knew how to market and do PR for my show. So I started interviewing, making sure to interview reality stars who I knew would sort of unload in interviews. And then there's this whole afterlife to it that I would get quoted in all these media outlets. Well, there was this one show still on the air on Bravo. It is called Southern Charm. And there was
Okay.
this one season where a girl named Madison was kind of fighting with Craig, at the reunion, and he said, you're a home wrecker, and you've been talking to an ex MLB player, and just kind of like arguing about it. Well, the following week, I interviewed someone else on the cast, and I asked her about that, and I said, well, what do you think about rumors that it's Alex Rodriguez? And she said, well, I already knew about it because she would talk about it on set. Well, that interview posted, and 4 hours later, it was the #1 pop culture story in the country.
Oh
It's
my
like,
gosh.
what? Jennifer Lopez's boyfriend, Alex Rodriguez, fiance at the time, is talking to this girl on a reality show on the Bravo network. And it was crazy. It was like a total spinning, wild story. And I felt like I was at the center of it. But it was from my show.
That's incredible. Wow. Wow. Yeah. I mean, we all
And
know
by
the
the way,
feeling
they ended
of
up
that.
breaking up and she never
Yeah.
thanked
Obviously. And it hasn't been going that great since, I'll say. So, oh my gosh, I love that. So, where do you see things headed from here? Like, you've created so much and so much amazing like joy and content and all of that, but like where do you want to take things from here?
I would love to get into producing because I feel like I'm a gatekeeper to so many fantastic stories. And I would love to create opportunities for other people to tell their stories in a longer form. I can't tell you the amount of people that I meet and I think, this is a documentary, this is a reality show. And I feel like I've got my real finger on the pulse. Sometimes I joke, but I'm not kidding. I could run a television network. I just think I have a great idea of like what people really care about. So I would love to do producing. I'd love
Hmm.
to write a book, and I'd love to just expand this show and get even more incredible guests.
Excellent. I love it. It's interesting you just said about like the stories. I also just binged a bunch of different documentaries, the Natalia Grace, you know that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I
Okay.
know the couple that it's a married couple that produced that, and it was the wife Shannon. She chased that story. She's really the one who's the genius behind it.
Is that for the new Hulu one or there's so
For the
many.
for the for the documentary series that air, that is the inspiration for the scripted
Okay.
series.
Yeah, so it's so crazy because there were so many, but I felt like I voraciously like consumed it and then I needed to know everything. So I was going
Yeah.
to find all the backstories and then there's like two seasons, one from a long time ago. And then so but more recently one came out on Hulu, a limited series. So not
Mhm.
necessarily reality, but I saw so Meredith Grey from Grey's Anatomy, I don't know her
Mhm.
real name. She
Ellen Pompeo.
Sorry, it escaped me for a second. After 21 years in medical school with her, I should know that. But it was very interesting. I heard her interviewed and she was talking about, well, the story changes depending on who's telling the story.
That's for sure.
And I really liked, even though the facts, like if you lay them all out in an Excel spreadsheet from every single one I watched are exactly the same, all of those shows and documentaries are completely different.
Mhm.
And like this one, for some reason, made me have more compassion with the family versus the other ones made me hate that family. And so it was just very interesting to see the effects like that you have depending on who's telling the story and how it's going, even though it's the same story.
Yeah. Well, I think scripted softens people's personalities, right? But the
Yeah.
beauty of a docuseries is it is just completely raw. You're going to see the most authentic version of someone. And the other
Yeah.
thing is when you take the real people, what's also great about them, unlike movie stars or TV stars, is that they have yet to become accustomed to not only fame, but shaping their persona depending on who the audience is. So
Yeah.
I enjoy that a lot more. And the other thing I really love about unscripted versus scripted is, let's say there is a show you love, like, I don't know, This Is Us. Those characters you love so much, but they sort of die off when the show ends. And you can watch a reality show, 20 years ago, and you can still follow those people on social media. And sometimes they pop up in other shows. So it's just like that story continues.
Yeah.
And I love that. I don't like it when a story ends. I want to keep following it and chasing it.
Same. I know I get so depressed when I binge a series or it's over, it's canceled.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, but I need to know what happened.
Mhm.
Where's this person going? That's
I'm
great.
going to give you one thing to watch, and you may have already watched it. I'm going to give you something to watch and then something that you can read with it because I feel
Okay.
like you're a go down the rabbit hole kind of girl.
Yes, absolutely. I'm
So
already
there's this
halfway.
series, a Netflix docuseries that came out a little while ago. It is called Surviving Death. And
Mm,
each episode is a different category. So signs. And one of the episodes is about children that have memories of their past life, so reincarnation. And they
okay.
interviewed a couple in it, and they're the same couple from a book that I had read 20 years ago. And their son started having memories as early as a 2-year-old, first in the form of dreams, where he could talk about memories as a World War II pilot. He could tell you the name of the men in the squadron, the plane that he flew, the ship that he flew off from. He could tell you about the circumstances of his family of origin. And so that story, which was in a book, which became part of a docu-series, I chased that story for so many years. And when the doc-series aired, I tracked down the dad, and then I did an interview with him. His name's Bruce Leininger, and his son's name is James. And it's kind of interesting because he's in the military, but he had all of these memories of a child that matched up with a man by the name of James Houston, who had died during World War II. And one of the takeaways, there were a couple different crazy ones, but one in particular is that that little boy, James, asked his parents to get him GI Joes. And he was very specific about them. He wanted a brunette, a blonde, and a redhead. And father asked him, well, what are the names of your GI Joe soldiers? And he said, Billy, Walter, and Leon. Well, they're kind of odd names for a young boy.
Yeah.
I asked him, why did you name them that? And he said, because they met me in heaven. And then when they looked through the manifest, he had 3 guys in his squadron that died just before James Houston with the names Billy, Walter, and Leon.
Oh my
So
gosh.
there are all these like really interesting things. And that's like an example of it was a book and then it became a doc series. And then I interviewed him and he did write a book. So it's like the stories continue. And I think as time goes on, the lens through which we look at stories change too. So you
Sure.
can talk to somebody who was on a reality show or the subject of documentary 10 years ago, but if you interviewed them now, there's more to the story or they've changed their perspective. And that's what
Yeah.
I like about unscripted TV and why I've devoted so much of my professional second chapter life and career to it.
I love this. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to start binging your show. You can binge podcasts too, you know. This is great. So where can people find you if they're looking to listen?
So you can listen to Reality Life with Kate Casey anywhere where you listen to podcasts. I also have a what to watch list at katecasey.substack.com. And every Monday in your inbox, you get a list of these are the things that you're going to want to watch this week: reality shows, documentaries, and series. And then you can follow me on social media. I'm on Instagram at @KCaseyCA, TikTok, it's Kate Casey, and Twitter threads and Blue Sky at Kate Casey.
Excellent. Oh my gosh, I love this. Well, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank
This has been
you.
amazing. I love your stories. I feel like we could talk forever. And thank you everybody for watching and spending your time with us today. And if you are a creator and you're interested in getting distribution for your projects, you can get a complimentary consultation at bingedistribution.com. And remember, keep creating. The world needs your project. Thank you, everybody.